Hare Krishna, thank you so much for visiting us again. This is lesson 4 of our study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Let us now begin with our meditation for the week. You are requested to take deep breaths while meditating on these beautiful images which are there on your screen right now. So here we go. Imagine yourself in this beautiful land of Vraja, filled with cows and cowherd boys running hither-thither, all free and wild, careless and completely dependent on Krishna, with their little hero Krishna. Picture yourself in the land of Vrindavan, where after a long day of service to Krishna's favorite cows, you'll be able to sit in front of Vrindavan Chandra Krishna and hear him play his loving flute. Long and keen to be amidst these most glorious cowherd boys who have the greatest good fortune of sharing their lunch boxes with Krishna, of the good fortune of teasing Krishna. Let us pray today that may the dust particles of the dust particles on the lotus feet of these Vrajavasis, cowherd boys, fall upon our heads, because that would be our greatest blessing. Now, desiring to be with Krishna and desiring to be with his Gopsakhas, let us take 5 more deep breaths. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much. We move to our next section. Let's begin with the Shri Guru Pranam, taking the blessings of the Acharyas so that we can study Srimad Bhagavad Gita and gain important lessons out of it. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the torchlight of knowledge. So after taking the blessings of the Acharyas, let's move to our next Mangalacharan mantra, Shri Rupa Pranam. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? So today again we'll be meditating on this mantra. So as is evident from the meaning of this mantra, we are basically desiring for shelter under the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami. That means we are trying to invest our faith in Srila Rupa Goswami. So today in this session, we are going to elaborate on this aspect of faith. So what is faith basically? Now, faith is something so inherent in us that we cannot live without faith. Right now, right here, I'm sitting peacefully because I have faith that the roof on the top of my head will not crash. I am sitting peacefully because I have faith that the chair on which I'm sitting will not break, right? So faith is something so inherent in us. We cannot survive even a single moment peacefully if we do not have faith. And faith in these things, such as the building, the furniture, etc., has kind of increased or has developed with time because we have observed things around, we have lived through so many experiences. So we are basically going to explore this idea of faith today. So I'm going to tell you a story from the history of Europe, which I heard in one video that I saw. The video was from from a debate which had happened in the Cambridge University. So it's a bona fide story. So the gentleman was sharing that long, long back when Europe, derived all its lifestyle from what was preached in the churches by the priests and nurses. That time, everybody was heavily reliant on what they were teaching and how whatever they were saying. So suddenly, yeah, at one particular time in the history of Europe, bubonic plague, broke out, and so many people started dying of the plague. And the priests and the nuns, they were helpless. They were not able to, neither they were able to explain the disease, nor were they able to cure it. So it was a very crazy situation. People felt so helpless and they were questioning the churches. So, however, what had happened was, as a natural response to such a massive pandemic, the physicians and nuns who were serving the ill and nurses who were serving the ill, somehow they started recording their observations and they started experimenting. For example, they started experimenting the use of covering their mouth, and then they recorded it and they circulated it amongst each other, meaning they were experimenting, maybe cleaning the hand before observing the patient and then cleaning it again. And they made an observation that just by this simple procedure I could avoid getting infected, and then they circulated this observation among each other. So this is how somehow the procedures of science came into existence, when people started observing, experimenting, and recording. So predominantly science, in our lives, predominantly in the world today, most people have a lot of faith in science because, of course, it can give apparent results, and it is subject to experimentation. And so people have a lot of faith. We are, many of us, and definitely science has improved our life so much. Now, if we very objectively see, you know, then what has been the major influence of science in our lives? Science has been able to prolong our lives. You know, humans are now crossing 80s, 90s, and reaching hundreds very, very comfortably. And science has also reduced so much of our physical misery. It has given us so many comforts. Definitely, it has improved the quality of our lives. So definitely a lot of credit needs to be given there. Uh, but science can prolong our life, improve our life, but there are some questions which science will not be able to answer, because simply because it's not, because these questions exist but they cannot be solved with the procedures that science follows. Now, some of these questions would be like, why do I exist? Why is this consciousness? Why am I the conscious being? What is the purpose of my existence? Like, science can definitely explain how a zygote grows up into a human being, but science cannot explain why me, the conscious being, Amrita Radhe Devidasi, exists. This science will not be able to answer. Similarly, there are so many other things also that we observe around in the world. Like, for example, just a simple case, I used to teach in a business school before, and have I used to have, one of my students who was a little above average. I see in his life, we are still in touch, and he shares his achievements and his failures with me. And I see that he gets things so easily. Like, he started a YouTube channel, he got instantly 11,000 views. Even though, and he started trading, he started making a lot of money. Now, comparing him to other students who were much smarter, more, articulate and whatever, more gifted, they're struggling with their with their jobs and with whatever financial stability. But so such sort of, what do you call, uh, you know um such things also we observe in lives of human, how a person who may not be so gifted, or who may not be so talented, makes it so makes it and becomes so successful compared to others who may be more talented, but they end up struggling more. So many such things science cannot explain. So now I'm going to share with you a data that I came across. Uh, so there's one organization, Pew Research Center, which conducted a survey among scientists, those who were registered under the American Association of Scientists, and asked whether they believed in God. So 33% uh, said that they did believe in God. 18% said that they don't believe in God, but they do believe that there is some higher power. While the while 41% just plainly replied that they did not believe in God or any such concept of higher power, and 7% were confused. So we see nearly 51% of scientists, American scientists, at least back in 2009, they did kind of believe in God. So this question of whether God exists or not, we are going to discuss a little bit. Why? Because in our sampradaya, especially Srila Prabhupada, never encouraged us to have blind faith. He wanted us to have, he wanted us to be aware of so many things, and he wanted us to be able to, see things very logically and be aware of the different philosophies that are there in the world today, and be able to kind of compare our faith with that, and be able to kind of because Prabhupada always wanted us to study Srimad Bhagavad Gita scrutinizingly and consider it to be spiritual science. So, with that in mind, we are going to discuss certain aspects, certain observations to understand whether or not to believe in God is rational. So let's do a little bit of scientific study, or just a scientific example. Now, suppose there are three factories. Okay, factory A takes in some raw materials, produces something, and gives out some waste. Now, the waste of factory A becomes the raw material for factory B. Okay, but whatever waste comes out of factory B gets utilized by factory C. Okay, the waste that factory C generates again gets reused by factory A. So if such a system could be established, then there will be practically no wastage, right? It will be a very perfect system. This system cannot exist, at least it cannot be made by humans. But what we see in nature is something similar. We see that when we breathe out carbon dioxide, these plants consume or use, these trees, plants consume this carbon dioxide, you know, that's what they inhale, that's what they take in to build, to make their food and to survive, while they give out the waste that peace produces oxygen, which is something that we cannot live without. So we see such a design in place in the world or in nature around us. Our waste is used by the plants and their waste is used by us. So there is, so that means this system is an intelligent system. Some design must have been there in this system. So naturally, we can expect that there is a designer of such a system. So by observing nature, we can at least invest a little bit of faith in the idea that there is a God. Okay. So again, one example. Now another example is, usually when a liquid solidifies, it becomes heavier and sinks into the liquid. For example, gold. If there's molten gold and it's liquid, and if there's solid gold, naturally we expect that once something solidifies, it should become heavier and it should sink in. But something really unique happens in case of water. When water solidifies into ice, it becomes lighter and ice floats on water. Now what happens due to this? Ice forms a layer on the lake, on these lakes. Okay. So what happens because of this? The oxygen in the water remains trapped inside. So the fishes and other aquatic animals, they continue to get oxygen while they are under ice, beneath the level of the ice, beneath the covering of ice. Also, ice acts as an insulator. It keeps the water underneath warm. Again, we can see that in order to allow the aquatic animals to survive, we see that there is certain design in nature. And because of this, we can put in some faith in the idea that there is a designer, that there is God, right? So that is why, because there are these questions which science cannot answer, but but most of these questions get their answers in the holy script called Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Like, why is there disparity between the results that a person gets and the effort that he makes, right? And why are there so many different types of people and so many things? If we study Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we'll be able to, like, for example, why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? Answers to these things can be uh, received from Srimad Bhagavad Gita if we choose to invest our faith in acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami and take shelter, and under their guidance take shelter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So with this we will now invest our faith in the uh, in Srila Rupa Goswami and move ahead with our study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But there's one thing that our acharyas explain, that we cannot understand God through our own intellectual study. We cannot understand God unless He reveals Himself to us. And our acharyas explain that God, Bhagwan, or Bhakti, can be understood only when one is free of sinful reactions. So, if we really are eager to understand and establish a relationship with Bhagavan, then we must free ourselves from sinful reactions. And that means that we should follow the four regulative principles which are suggested by acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami. What are the four regulations? No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So, of course, grihastha life, married life is allowed on this path, but illicit relationships are not to be engaged in for us to be able to become pure enough to access God. All right. Okay. So now coming to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So basically, let's let's systematically study Srimad Bhagavad Gita and try to apply the teachings of Bhagavad Gita in our life, and let us understand that basically what we are engaging in is science of self realization, meaning that we, through the process, we should be able to realize that who is consciousness, that is making this body work is, and you know what is the, what is the connection of this consciousness to the supreme consciousness or God, right? So basically, Bhagavad Gita teaches us science of self realization. Right. Let's come back to chapter 1. Last time we had seen a big chart, and which reflected the overview of Srimad Bhagavad, the first chapter. Now, first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita has 46 verses. First 13 of these verses are about preparation of war. This is something that we covered in our last session. So we discussed how Duryodhana was basically, Sanjaya was relaying the occurrences of Kurukshetra to Dhritarashtra, who was blind, and Sanjaya pointed out how Duryodhana had approached Dronacharya and was trying to push Bhishma and Dronacharya to fight valiantly with all their might, because he was in a doubt whether they will fight with all their strength, because he was aware that both of them have some sort of soft corner for the Pandavas. So initially he was kind of pointing out the strength of his opposition, the army of the Pandavas, and later realizing that this will be too demoralizing for his own party members. So he started pointing out or glorifying the Maharathis in his team. So this is what we had gone through in the first 13 verses of chapter 1. Today we are going to discuss verses from 14 to 20, and these will give us an indication of who will be the victorious party, because there will be some signs of victory which would for sure reflect how, or rather who or which party would be the winner after the war. All right, so let's quickly begin. Signs of victory is the name of the section. We are studying the 14th verse of first chapter. Tatha shweter hayer yukte mahati syandane sthitau madhava pandavaschaiva divyau sankhau pramadad matau. So our hero has arrived. It's like in Bollywood movies, how a hero comes on white horses and takes away the glance of the spectators. So similarly, Krishna has also arrived on white horses here, On the other side, Sanjaya is pointing out, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Last time, if you remember, Sanjaya had pointed out how Bhishma sounded his conch shell. Uh, but his conch shell was not referred to as Divya or transcendental. All right. So this is also an indication that both these warriors, Krishna and Arjuna, had transcendental Divya Shankha. All right. Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Poundram Dadmau Mahashankham Bhima Karma Vrikodaraha. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean task, blew his terrific conch shell, the Poundra. So surprising that Sanjaya is even naming the conch shells, because these are not ordinary conch shells belonging to some ordinary warriors. These are extraordinary conch shells uh, in the hands of some transcendental personalities. So Lord Krishna blew his Panchajanya. It is a suggestion that if you have some love for Krishna, then you can remember the name of his conch shell, because it's a sign of love. When you love someone, you remember big and small things about that person. So devotees, especially because they love Krishna, they remember big and small things about Krishna. The name of Krishna's eternal conch shell is Panchajanya. All right. Now here, Prabhupada, or here the word, the name Rishikesha is used for Krishna. Okay, so now in Prabhupada, in the purport, Prabhupada points out that Rishikesha, what is the meaning of Rishikesha? Isha means controller, Rishik means senses. So Rishikesha means he is the controller of the senses of everyone, of every living entity. So in the purport, Prabhupada points out two very, very important points. One is that the impersonalists, who are impersonalists, who believe that consciousness does not have any form, that you and I, as consciousness, as soul, we don't have any eternal forms. Neither does the supreme consciousness or God has a form. Even he is impersonal, formless, like a light. Similarly, you and I also eternally are like lights. That this is what the impersonalists believe. Now, for them, it is very hard to um, explain why we as living beings have these senses through which we can enjoy variety. Okay? So Prabhupada points out that impersonalists cannot account for the senses of living entities. Therefore, they're always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. On the other hand, in the school of bhakti, we understand that we have to use these senses, or we must satisfy the senses of the supremely conscious Krishna. That is why we cook bhoga for Krishna and offer it to him. So because we know that supreme consciousness also has senses, and through these senses he can enjoy, and he is Rishikesha. He can control everyone's senses also. So now question can be asked, if Krishna can control my senses, so if I suppose misuse my senses in doing and do something uh, improper, then I should not be held responsible. Krishna should be held responsible. because he is controlling, he is Rishikesh, so he should be held responsible. But Prabhupada explains the Lord situated in the hearts of all living entities. So first thing, Krishna is sitting right within your body, in your heart, and he's directing your senses. But he directs in the terms of the surrender of the living entity, which means that if suppose I let's first take an example of a living entity who is not surrendered to Krishna, who just wants to do whatever his or her mind desires. Okay, suppose someone wants to enjoy in a nightclub. Okay, so he cannot move his body without Krishna's sanction. Okay, so he will not get the resources to go to a nightclub without Krishna's sanction, right? So only when Krishna sanctions that, okay, you go to the nightclub, okay, somehow you get a job and you get, you earn enough to go to a nightclub. So okay, so now you will also get an, only when Krishna sanctions, he'll be able to successfully enter the nightclub, right? So in that case, Krishna is simply sanctioning because the living entity is desiring, and somehow he has some good karma to get money sufficient enough to go to a nightclub and get resources enough to a nightclub. But what the living entity is doing is he's misusing his freedom of desiring, and he wants something which will not please Krishna, which will only satisfy his own senses. He will get to be in association of, opposite sex. He will be able to enjoy intoxicants. So he is misusing his independence, but he's by desiring things which will not please Krishna, but he'll not be able to get those things until and unless Krishna sanctions. Okay? So if he has that desire, the Lord will direct him. But but in case of pure devotees who do not want anything except to serve and please Krishna. Okay? So that they get the most intense direction. Okay? Now, a very simple, small example, like there is one child I know who came to the UK and he desired that I should, he's be able to talk about Krishna to, my fellow classmates, right? So, this was one desire that he had. Now, okay, basically, it was my son. When he moved to the UK, he wanted, basically, because he has grown up in a devotee family, he wanted to do whatever little. He's been to the temple and he wanted to share about Krishna consciousness to people here in the UK. So somehow, so in UK they teach about different religions and different civilizations, like Roman civilization and Viking civilization. So they also talk about Hinduism in one of their terms. So mm, because my son doesn't eat outside food, he eats only his own food. So his teachers know that he is a practicing Hindu. So his teacher approached me and said, would it be possible for you to send a puja thali so that we can demonstrate, we can demonstrate how Hindus worship. So we took this opportunity and we created a video in which we spoke a lot about, bhakti, about philosophy, about Krishna, and we shared some videos about, the ways of our kirtan and aartis, our worship basically. So his desire of wanting to share Krishna somehow was magically facilitated by Krishna. He just simply desired that he should be able to talk about Krishna, and then Krishna directed his teacher. There are so many other Hindu families also in their school, many Indians, but somehow they walked to Padmanabh, and we got an opportunity to present Krishna consciousness. So depending upon our surrender, Krishna will direct us more and more. Also, in this verse, Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya because he was primarily responsible to bring or accumulate wealth for the organization of the yagya which Yudhishthir Maharaj did, the Ashwamedh yagya, in which Krishna was given the Agra puja or the first worship. So he's named as Dhananjaya, the acquirer of wealth. Okay, so now let's move to our other set of verses from 16 to 18. अनंत विजयम राजा कुंतीपुत्रो युधिष्ठिर नकुला सहदेवश्च सुघोषो मणिपुष्पकौ काश्यश्च परमेशस्व आस शिखण्डी च महारथ धृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च सात्यकीश्च पराजित द्रुपदौ द्रौपदेयश्च सर्वश पृथ्वीपते सौभाद्रश्च महाबाहो शंखान दद्मु पृथक पृथक. Now Sanjaya is pointing out how different kings are blowing their conch shells. Yudhishthira, son of Kunti Putro Yudhishthira, how he's referred to. See how beautiful Sanskrit is. Anand blew his conch shell. What is the name of his conch shell? Ananta Vijaya. So again, a sign of victory of the Pandavas. Nakula and Sahadev blew Sughosha and Mani Pushpaka. What is that? Sughosha and Mani Pushpakau by Nakula Sahadevascha. King of Kashi, that great archer, and the great fighter Shikandi. So, sorry, yeah, So again, Kashyascha, king of Kashi. Kashyas, though there's one extra A now here. And Shikandi cha, Maharatha, the great warrior. So how beautifully Sanskrit is used, Drishtadyumna, Virat, the unconquerable Satyaki. Let's see what's the word for unconquerable. Satyaki. Aparajita. Aparajita. Satyaki. So beautiful. Drupada, sons of Draupadi. See how Draupadi's sons are also referred to as Draupadeyascha. With one word, all 5 sons have been referred to. Draupadeyascha. Similarly, for mighty armed son of Subhadra, Saubhadrascha. Saubhadras. So like that. So they all blew their respective conch shells. Prithak. Okay, so here basically Prabhupada points out that see how Sanjaya is naming all the powerful personalities from the party of the Pandavas and pointing out to Dhritarashtra that your policy of supporting Duryodhana wasn't a very wise policy, because see how powerful they are, the other party. Because of you, everyone is going to perish because you unnecessarily supported a war. So he's pointing out that, all were present, yet they were all doomed to die because of such a great, huge war, which was happening only because of the ego, the false ego of Duryodhana, because the Pandavas were even happy to take 5 villages. But Duryodhana wasn't ready to give 5 villages. So Sanjay is pointing out that you shouldn't have done it. Dhritarashtra. Now let's go to the next verse. Saghosho Dhartarashtra hridayani vidarayat nabhascha prithvim taiva tumulo dhanunadayan. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Very clearly, Sanjaya said, because of the blowing of these conch shells, the tumultuous sounds, the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered. He's very clearly pointing out that Pandavas and their party is very, very strong. Okay, let's move to the next verse. अथ व्यवस्थितान् दृष्ट्वा धार्तराष्ट्रान् कपिध्वजा प्रवृत्ते शास्त्रसम्पाते धनुरुद्यम्य पाण्डवा ऋषिकेशं तदा वाक्यम् इदम् आहा महीपते. At that time, Arjun, son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. So Arjuna was about to, initiate the war. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra, when he was pointing you know, his arrow towards the other party, he looked at the sons of Dhritarashtra, and then he stopped and he spoke to Krishna. What he spoke, we'll come to know next time. But there's something very interesting here that Arjuna's chariot had a flag, and that flag was Kapi Dhwaja, was marked by the image of Hanuman. So the story goes that once Bhima was going to the Himalayas, and Bhima is Vrikodra. Not only does he eat a lot, but he also engages in very you know, Herculean tasks. He engages in Herculean tasks, meaning he's very powerful. He had the power of 10,000 elephants, right? So he was walking. Just imagine, picture how he must be walking so gracefully and powerfully. He was walking up, and suddenly, while on his way, he saw an old monkey whose long tail was spread out all across his path. Being a Shakti, a powerful man, he told this old monkey, because in Vedic traditions it's improper, it is considered improper to cross over anyone, because in Vedic tradition we are always very conscious that there is Paramatma, Krishna residing in every living entity's heart. So imagine he didn't even want to cross over the tail of a monkey. So he just looked at the monkey and he said, "Oh, old monkey, why don't you pull in your tail and let me go?" The monkey said, "Oh, great warrior, you seem to be a great warrior. Please see, I'm an old monkey, and I do not have the strength to pull in my tail. Please, you yourself move it aside and walk ahead." Initially, he was a bit, irked that, "What are you saying? Why should I touch your tail?" But then he said, "Okay, he's an old monkey." So, so he bent himself, and with his hand, he was just trying to pick up the tail, but he couldn't. So he applied more, greater force. Tried to pull up the tail of the monkey, but he couldn't. And one more time he tried. It didn't work. And he realized this monkey is not an ordinary person, because Bhima knew that he has power of 10,000 elephants, and he has never seen a monkey like that. So he quickly folded his hands and you know, begged and started praying to this monkey and said, "Oh, glorious monkey, who are you? Please reveal your identity to me." See, this is the humility of a devotee of Krishna. Even though Bhima is so powerful. He was ready to bow down and fold his hands in front of a monkey, realizing that, he is someone great. So the monkey then revealed, "Oh, Vayuputra Bhim, I am just like you. I am also Vayuputra. I am Vayuputra Hanuman, and I'm very pleased by your humility. Ask me for a benediction." So that time Bhima said that, we are going in for a war and we need your blessings so that we can win the war. So Hanumanji blessed him that, okay, so whenever you roar in the war field, I will add my roar to your roar. And then and hearing that powerful roar, the the hearts of the enemies of Pandavas would shatter and they'll become weak. Also, I will appear as on the flag of Arjuna and give him strength. So, so on the chariot of Arjuna, not only was there Hanuman, but also Sri Ram in the form of Krishna. So, because wherever Ram and Hanuman are present, victory is confirmed. It's for sure. So, these are the signs of victory revealed in these verses from 14 to 20. So these are the 6 7 verses that we've studied today from chapter 1. Now we are also going to meditate on a life story of a devotee who practiced Krishna consciousness or Bhagavad Gita in his life. So we are going to remember today Mr. N.D. Desai, who was later initiated as SriNath Ji Prabhu in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So N.D. Desai Prabhu was born in a very, very wealthy and very influential Gujarati family of Mumbai. He went, he was a doctorate, he was actually doctorate or a PhD holder from University of Pennsylvania, very learned. He was very scholarly. I personally remember attending some of his lectures in Radha Gopinath temple. He had, you know, he remembered all the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. He had learnt all the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, and I even remember once that one boy, was questioning or challenging Srinath Ji Prabhu and was asking something related to Shakespeare. Actually, his question was that you all are saying, chant the holy names, but Shakespeare in his, uh, I think he said in his novel, he said, "What's in the name?" So that time, Shinaji Prabhu completely smashed his argument, said Shakespeare never wrote a novel, he wrote dramas like that. So basically, he was very learned, very influential. He was chairman and managing director of several companies. One of his factories was the largest producers of light bulbs and fluorescent tubes. And he had immense wealth and he used his wealth in service of Krishna. He gave a lot of financial support to many temples and many goshalas. And if you go to our ISKCON temple, there is a beautiful book by Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj called On Radha Rani. That book was actually printed by him, and there must be several others also. Not only that, he actually personally used his intelligence also, and there were always contentions against ISKCON, that why do these ISKCON people keep chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. It should rather be Hare Rama first and then Hare Krishna. So then he did his research and dug out Kali Santarna Upanishad, and using his scholarly intelligence, he published an article about how Kali Santarna Upanishad also gives the same mantra, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So he used his wealth, his intelligence, and also he used his influence in serving Krishna. So what had happened was that actually Radha Gopinath temple, if you happen to visit, it actually began by a small room where some picture of Radha and Krishna were being worshipped. But soon the temple congregation could somehow purchase one floor of that building. So after they got a floor, they decided they should invite some deities. So another devotee who was actually a lawyer, Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, that's his name. So he went to Jaipur to get deities. When he went there, he saw these deities. They were actually made for ISKCON Ananda. But ISKCON Anand's temple wasn't yet ready. The deities were ready. So, and Mahaprabhu Prabhu really loved these deities because they're so beautiful. So he made SriNath Ji Prabhu speak to the temple president of ISKCON Ananda and yeah, and convince him that he should allow us to take the deity. Anyway, Srinath Ji Prabhu being, he was really good at talking and influencing people, and he convinced the temple president of ISKCON Ananda. And so Mahaprabhu Prabhu brought these, started, picked up the deities and put them in his vehicle, and he was traveling from Jaipur to Mumbai via road. While on the way, one tax collector, a policeman stopped his vehicle and asked for octroi tax. Probably because he was traveling from one state to another, and that time they were charging octroi tax. The policeman said, "You have to pay octroi on these statues. You cannot take them like that." Mahaprabhu Prabhu that time didn't have money with him. So he had no other option. He called up SriNath Ji Prabhu, and SriNath Ji Prabhu spoke to that police person and convinced him that if he took octroi tax on Shishi Radha Krishna Chandra, then he'll have to go to hell. So with his charm, with his influence, he even convinced the police person to let statues go, and without unnecessarily wasting money here and there. So that was, and so therefore, through his influence, also he served Shishi Radha, Gopinath, and as a person, as of course he was. So another incident of how he used Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So as I said, he owned several factories, and one time a communist leader, organized a strike amidst his workers. Srinath Prabhu, what he did, he went and in front of all his workers, he handed over a copy of Bhagavad Gita to him. So communist leader said, it's not about religion. Srinath Prabhu said, everybody knows that I'm a devotee of Krishna and I'm running this factory on behalf of Krishna. And everybody knows that I try to treat everybody fairly, take care of all those working under me. But the demands that you're making are unreasonable. So because I'm not the owner of the factory, Krishna is, you discuss your case with him. So anyways, it's so amazing, that Krishna has his own ways, that the communist leader later, he realized, and everybody else was also touched that, okay, yes, what Shinaji Prabhu is saying is correct. And later that communist leader also left his party and he also became a devotee of Krishna. So that was the empowerment that Shinaji Prabhu had. So so, and at last I would want to share one of the quotes uh, from one of the lectures of Shinaji Prabhu. He says, Srila Prabhupada's message to the world was not one of artificial renunciation, but of devotion. Whatever you may be, family man, businessman, professional, add Krishna to your life and be happy. Business, after all, is an essential element of society. But if you work for Krishna, your life becomes sublime. So that's exactly what the Bhagavad Gita teaches, and this is what Shinaji Prabhu did in his life too. So this is it. Thank you for attending today's session. We began with a meditation on Krishna and the Gopsakas. We chanted our Mangalacharan, 2 verses, and we we discussed a little bit about faith, how to, to get answers for deeper questions such as who is God, and how to approach Him, and what is the purpose of my life. We can decide to invest our faith in the holy scriptures like Srimad Bhagavad Gita and the acharyas and try to lead a pure life. And then we discussed 6 verses from the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which are very strongly indicating that Pandavas would surely be the winner of the war. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.